Hello everyone, welcome to your easy guide to solving the English section for CLAT examination. And our topic for today is common answer traps and elimination strategies. But before we get into the topic for today, we'll start with our usual oh my god, what is this section? In this section, we try to crack some difficult passages, some difficult questions, so that when we come across something that apparently is difficult in the examination hall, our mind doesn't feel overwhelmed because we have already practiced solving some difficult passages, solving some difficult questions. We have already developed some strategies to deal with them. So we are well practiced and well rehearsed before we appear in the examination. So let's get into the passage. The passage goes like freedom, in its most exalted conception, often carries within it the seed of its own subversion. When individual liberty is pursued to the exclusion of collective responsibility, it risks descending into a form of moral solipsism, a condition where one's own desires become the sole metric of value. In contemporary democracies, the rhetoric of freedom is frequently instrumentalized to validate choices that may paradoxically erode the very foundation of civic life. For instance, when public health mandates are dismissed in the name of personal freedom, the cumulative effect may endanger the community's autonomy as a whole. Thus, freedom unmoored from ethical deliberation may lead not to empowerment but to entropy. Moreover, the modern individual often conflates freedom with the mere absence of restraint, ignoring the classical notion of freedom for the idea that liberty exists to enable human flourishing and moral action. The elevation of freedom from a means to an end into an end in itself reflects a deeper philosophical confusion, one that masks the dialectic between liberty and responsibility under the veil of entitlement. True freedom, then, must always be dialogical, negotiated in the space between self and society. Now, this is a fairly difficult passage. There are a lot of heavy words. There are several jargons that have been used. For example, dialectic. Now, it's not just difficult vocabulary, it's altogether a philosophical concept. And similarly, the concept of freedom, liberty, the difference between these two words. So, this is a fairly difficult passage, I would say. Now, today we'll try to solve this passage even when we do not understand the meaning of it. We only get a very surface level idea of the passage after reading it. And then also, if we come across some difficult passage like this, can we solve this by just using some sort of logics or just trying to, develop such skills that we can, solve these questions? So let's try. What is the main argument of the passage? Now we'll not get back to passage and we'll just try to solve this question based on the options. First, freedom should always be absolute. Option B, freedom without responsibility can undermine society. Option C, public health mandates are unnecessary. Option D, classical notions of liberty are outdated. Now, even if you did not understand the completely like the passage, let's see what are the statements that seem very absolutist in the nature, the extreme kind of statements. As I have told you time and again that you have to remove the extreme choices. It is very, very, very less likely that they can be the right answer. So freedom should always be absolute. Now this itself is a very absolute statement, that freedom should always is the keyword that you have to be wary of. The wherever there is the word used in the option, always just be wary of it. It's very less likely that this is going to be the right option. So we can eliminate the option one. Freedom should always be absolute. No, I mean freedom cannot be always absolute. Society cannot give freedom to commit suicide. So it cannot be absolute. Then uh, B, freedom without responsibility can undermine society. Now, can. So it looks like some wise person is saying something that this can happen. So let's keep this aside for now. Option C, public health mandates are unnecessary. I mean, seriously, why would public health mandates be unnecessary? It just doesn't make sense. D, classical notions of liberty are outdated. Again, classical notions of liberty, it can't be completely outdated. You can go back to the passage and just try to see wherever the word classical notion is written and just see if it gives a sense of being outdated or not. But still, even if you don't want to do that, if you just want to, use the logics and solve the question, or solve it only on the basis of option analysis, we see that option B looks like a very moderate statement. And in main argument type of passage, the moderate statements are usually the answer. So if you are overwhelmed by the passage, you have to see to it that the passage can still be cracked based on option analysis. Again, it's a trick and it can backfire also. So this is only when all other options are exhausted, and then only you go for these kind of trickeries in the exam. Otherwise, it's not the first or the best way to go about it. Uh, Elimination of extremes is a good option, but otherwise also, like for example B and D, if you're not sure, you must get back to passage and look for what is written about the classical notions. But here I feel that B should be the answer, that freedom without responsibility can undermine the society. Again, you can go back to the passage and try to see that whether option B fits or not. Because like I've told you a lot of times, that your logics or the real world logics or the common sense fails if the passage is not making that argument. You have to choose based on the argument of passage. So even if you're doing the option analysis, when you are confused between two options, go back, find those keywords in the passage, and only then choose the final option, even if you are going for option analysis. Okay. Now, what does the author imply by freedom unmoved from ethical deliberation may lead to entropy? Now I understand that a lot of you might not know what does the word unmoved mean. Deliberation is also a moderately difficult word. You might not know what deliberation is, and entropy also. You will not. You might know it in the scientific sense, but in this context, a lot of you might not understand what it is. But even with this lack of understanding, let's try to crack this question. How do we do it? So we have to understand. Find the meaning of this statement. So the first statement is unethical people cannot be free. Again, this is an extreme statement that unethical people cannot be free. How come? Then there would be no corruption in the society. So you can't be sure unethical people cannot be free. This is not. This is an absolute statement. Eliminate it. Too much freedom always leads to lawlessness. Again, always. Too much freedom will always lead to lawlessness. No, I mean, again, an absolutist, extremist statement. Eliminate it. Freedom without moral thought can cause disorder. Again, now it looks like some Baba, some wise person is saying can cause disorder. Keep this option aside. This could be the right answer. D. Ethical thought restricts true freedom. Now, this also feels like mm, could be an answer, but in C and D, C looks like a more moderate kind of answer. Now, you've eliminated A and B. For C and D, you go back to passage and just try to read again. Now, again, if you do not know the meaning of unmoved, so let's try to still crack the statement. So, freedom unmoved from ethical deliberation. Now, unmoved, something when there is this word un used before a statement, it means separation. For example, fair, unfair, something not fair, unfair, or what else? What else can be the example of fair, unfair? Okay, I can't think of any example at this point, but by the keyword un shows some sort of separation or removal. So, freedom unmoved from ethical deliberation may lead to. That means that freedom and ethics, deliberation also, if you do not understand, leave it. So, freedom, when separated from ethics, may lead to. So, if you see that there is no morality, no ethics with freedom, it will always lead to some sort of problematic thing only, even if you do not know the entropy. So, the option C aligns closest to the statement. Freedom without moral thought can cause disorder. For example, we hear the cases of road rages, road accidents. There is freedom. People try to think, okay, we are free on road, no speed limits. Freedom without morality can lead to accidents. So something like, it's a very not the best example, but something on those lines. Freedom without morality can cause disorder. So in this kind of manner, you can try to crack the words. For example, you do not know what unmoved is. Try to see unshows some sort of separation, like, or freedom and ethics are separation. I mean, they are not together, may lead to. So some sort of negative thing will be there if freedom and morality are not together. So in this way, you can try to get to the meaning of it through option analysis without going to the passage. But again, this is trickery. You should always go back to passage and try to understand the context. This is only a matter of last resort, and it can only come after a lot of practice. So do not think that you can always take these shortcuts, because they can backfire also. Question 3. According to the author, how is modern freedom often misunderstood? Option A, it is seen as privilege instead of a right. Okay. Option B, it is mistaken as absence of limits rather than path to virtue. Option C, it is always aligned with government policies. Option D, it has become a legal concept only. Now, again, you can at least eliminate option C and option D. It is always aligned with government policies. Doesn't make sense. It's an extremist statement, so you can just remove it. It has become a legal concept only. Again, extremist. But again, before eliminating, try to go back to passage so you can be 100% sure. Now, you are left with two options. It is seen as a privilege instead of a right, and it is mistaken as absence of limits rather than path to virtue. So, if you go back to passage, you'll find the correct answer. Option 4. Sorry, question 4. The tone of the passage can be best described as ironic and humorous, aggressive and accusatory, reflective and philosophical, descriptive and neutral. I think even if you do not understand the word reflective, you understand this is all Babagiri. Some sort of philosophy is going on. That is why we couldn't understand what exactly is going on. Freedom, justice, some sort of philosophy the author is trying to put in the passage. So the option is C, reflective and philosophical. Option 5, question 5. What is the meaning of phrase moral solipsism as used in the passage? So the best strategy would be to go back to the passage. But okay, again, this sounds like a scary word, solipsism, difficult to pronounce also. So let's try to crack it as it is. The belief that morality should be imposed on others. B, a state where only personal desires matter. C, a condition of collective indifference. And D, the rejection of all moral systems. Let's see how it is in the passage. Okay, so when individual liberty is pursued to the exclusion of collective responsibility, it risks descending into a form of moral solipsism, a condition where one's own desire becomes the sole metric of value. So, like I had told you in previous videos also, that if you have to, you find a keyword, you find that keyword in the passage and you start reading one or two lines above it till one or two lines below it. So you understand the whole context, not just that one line where it is saying it risks descending into moral solipsism. You won't understand anything. But here you see that moral solipsism is sort of defined in the passage itself. It's a condition where one's own desires become the sole metric of value. So suppose you don't understand the second part of the statement, become the sole metric of value. Condition where one's own desire become something, soul, soul purpose. You understand the soul something of value, something you made some 50%, you have some 50% understanding of the statement. Okay, now with this 50% understanding, let's add some logic to it and try to find the answer. The belief that morality should be imposed on others, no. A state where personal desires matter, this looks like the answer. A condition of collective indifference, no. Here in the passage we see it's individual, it is about the individual being soul something of value, है ना? So personal desire wala option looks more likely. Option D, rejection of all moral systems. Again, an absolute statement, this cannot be. So option B seems to be the best option. So in this case, these are the solutions. So you can again read the passage, read the questions, and try to solve these questions. So this is the exact purpose of adding this section at the start of all the lectures. Oh my god, what is this? So if there is a very difficult passage also that you come across in the examination, there are a lot of difficult words, there is a very deep philosophy used, you still have to not let your mind be overwhelmed by those things. You have to keep thinking straight and you can still crack the question. So now we cracked all five questions associated with the passage, and we didn't even understand it line by line. So the examiner, if they are giving you a difficult question or the question difficult passage, the questions will be set in a manner that you will be able to solve a lot of times via option analysis or through logical deductions. So just keep your focus sharp during the examination. That is the sole purpose of doing this section. every before every lecture. Okay. So now let's get to our lecture of the day, that is common answer traps and elimination strategies. So the objective of today's lecture is to identify different answer traps, learn smart elimination techniques like we were doing using in this passage, recognize extreme and distorted choices, improve accuracy in reading comprehension, and with this boost confidence in tackling through tough RC questions. So, like today, we tried to solve the question more with elimination techniques, more using the logical deductions than understanding the passage, every bit of the passage. Okay. So we'll try to develop more techniques, understand more elimination techniques, or try to understand more traps so that we can do a good logical deduction and option analysis and solve even the difficult passages. Okay. So here is the trap one, that is extreme language. We have used it a lot of times. I have mentioned it a lot of times. By now, I think you are quite aware of this trap. Beware of the absolute words. Words like always, never, must, completely, and entirely. They signal extreme language and are usually incorrect. Like I've told you, Baba Log, the wisest people, people like Aristotle, they never talk in absolute terms because the world is like nobody has seen the whole world. There are so many possibilities, but you can only talk about the limited possibilities that you have encountered in life. So they can never say this always happens. This never happens. In my experience, I've seen these things only. But there are so many things beyond my experience also. So I always keep a scope of that this most likely happens, this most likely does not happen, so that there are the things beyond my experience. If I get to know about them, I can change my view. But until and unless based on my limited knowledge, I will never talk in absolute terms. So in your passages, in your reading passages, which are always taken from a very solid source, very good magazines and newspapers and all that, there will be rarely talking about absolute words, absolute arguments. So beware of absolute words. So these keywords. As soon as you encounter them, you should always think, okay, absolute word. So this is very less likely to be the right answer. Then CLAT prefers moderate claims, like we have seen in this previous passage also, that if some statement seems like a moderate in nature, it can most likely be the answer. Again, doesn't hold true for always, but most likely. So the correct answer often uses softer wording like some, often, may, tend to, usually. So let's take an example of a trap. So if the passage says most students prefer online learning, the wrong answer will be all students prefer online learning because it's too extreme. So if it is saying most students prefer, that means a lot of people are preferring online learning, but there can be many who are not preferring also. So all students prefer online learning cannot be concluded from this statement. Okay. It's a very extreme statement. Extreme answers are rarely supported. The passage must explicitly state an absolute claim for it to be correct. Unless the passage itself is saying this is happening always, this should not that option should not be chosen as the right answer. When in doubt, eliminate extreme choices, like we did in the previous passage. That whenever even if we did not understand anything, we tried to eliminate the absolute options, and we reached closer to the answer. At least two options you can eliminate in most cases. Okay. Now the trap two, opposite answer. So it completely reverses the passage's meaning. Some answers are exact opposite of what passage says. So sometimes what the examiner does is it will frame a question that what is the meaning of this statement. For example, moral solipsism, or that statement that we did in the previous question, which is the closest to it. And it will use those words from the passage and use one word or two word to completely reverse the meaning of that passage. So when you have not understood the passage and you look only for words and you see the familiar words, you think that this is the same line as in the passage. But the author has the examiner has very smartly used some word to flip the meaning from that of the passage. So for example, words like not, fails to, lacks, instead of. These words can flip the meaning in the passage. For example, the passage is saying that XYZ is the reason for cause A. So the option might say XYZ fails to be the reason of cause A. So sometimes in the hurry, students see, okay, XYZ is here, cause A is here. Okay, this might be the right answer. I have read something like this in the passage. So be very mindful of these words. Sometimes the examiner uses very similar words, and in the long statements, you only catch the words from the passage, and you miss on these words, these flip words, and the whole meaning is changed. And sometimes students fall in such trap. So CLAT loves to trick you with reversals. If the answer sounds familiar but contradicts the passage, eliminate it. Always go back to passage, because like I said, examiners, they set in small traps, and unless you go back to passage, you might fall for them. So ensure that the meaning aligns with the author's point before selecting an answer. Read carefully. Even a small word can change completely, and it can alter the meaning of answer choice. So you have to look for these small keywords that can completely flip the meaning of the statement. Okay. Now, trap 3, out of scope. That there are some options that bring in information that is not discussed in the passage. If the passage doesn't talk about it, don't pick it. So like I said, for every question based on the passage, it has to be based solely on the passage. You cannot bring in your common sense or your real world information or understanding to it. Whatever the passage says, you have to answer only and only on the basis of the information in the passage. Stick to what is stated in the text. CLAT doesn't reward outside knowledge, even if the answer sounds logical. For example, if the passage says sharks are important predators in marine ecosystem, and if there is an option in the associated question, sharks evolved from ancient reptiles. Now, this might be factually correct, but if this piece of information is not present in the passage, then this option is useless for you. So, if you come across any piece of information that is not present in the passage, even if it is factually correct, eliminate it. Test makers, they trick you with tempting but unrelated information. So stay focused on what is actually mentioned. This is also very important. That is why you should keep going back to passage and referring the option back to the passage, so that, because a lot of time when you're reading about a topic and you come across some fact, you think, this might be there in the passage. Okay, let's not go back to the passage and waste time. So this is where sometimes students fall in the trap. And look out for unnecessary facts. An answer can be factually correct, but still irrelevant. If it is not in the passage, then it's irrelevant. The right answer must be supported by passage and not your general knowledge. Okay. Now, trap 4, distortion. So it takes a true statement and it twists it. The answer is partially correct but exaggerated or altered. So you have to compare carefully with the passage. So a small tweak in the wording can change the meaning of the statement. So, for example, the passage says some students find math challenging. Now, if the answer says all students struggle with math, it is distorted, because the passage is only talking about some students. It is not talking about all the students. So sometimes students think, okay, I did read a line about students struggling with maths. Okay, this must be true. So you have to be very mindful of these things. Now, these are very simple statements that I've brought in the example. In the exam, if the statements are longish and have some heavy words, so it's very easy to fall in the trap of such statements. Okay, so be very mindful of these things. Extreme words often signal distortion. Watch out for always, never, completely, only. These things, they are the drivers of distortions. Okay. Check for subtle shifts. If the answer slightly modifies the fact from the passage, it is likely distorted. If an answer feels almost right but has the misleading detail, it's probably a distortion. So you have to be very careful about the distortion also. Now, the trap 5, half right and half wrong. So the first half of the answer is true, but the second half is false. So if in an option, you see it's a long statement which has two parts, and the first part you've read, it is completely true. It is present in the passage also, and there is no twisting also, and it is making sense. But the second part of the same statement, that is false, or that is an irrelevant piece of information, then it is a wrong statement. Then that cannot be an answer. Both part of the answer must be correct. Even if one part is wrong, then you have to eliminate it. For example, many doctors recommend meditation for stress relief, if this is what the passage says. So the wrong answer can be, many doctors recommend meditation for stress relief. Now, this is mentioned in the passage and as a cure for depression. This part is not mentioned in the passage as a cure for depression. This is something that the examiner has added on his own. So this is half right, but half wrong. So if it is half wrong, then you choose it as the wrong answer. It cannot be a right answer. So text makers, they mix truth with fiction. If the answer feels tricky, break it down into separate parts and then try to look at it. Then you have to fact check both the statements. If you find one inaccuracy, eliminate that answer immediately. Okay. Trap 6, misattribution. This is also very common. So a lot of time, the examiner wrongly assigns an idea to the wrong person or source. That is why when we were doing view stamp method, it is important that you see the viewpoints of every, I mean, when you're reading the passage, you notice the viewpoints of every element or every person or subject in the passage. So the statement may be true, but who said it is incorrect. So match, a lot of times, for example, the passage says Einstein's theories influenced modern physics. But in the option, it says Newton's theories influenced modern physics. So it is wrong, because even if Newton's theory did influence modern physics, it doesn't matter, because the passage said Einstein's theory did the influence modern physics. So this is one trap also, that they attribute that statement to Newton rather than to Einstein. So this is also one trap that you should be wary of. The examiners love to swap names, theories, or research attribution. Sometimes the name of the scientist remains the same, but the name of theory may be swapped. So be very mindful of these things. Text makers assume that you will rush through the details. Always verify who the information belongs to in the passage. That is why it is absolutely important that you always go back to passage before finalizing an answer. Do not go only with your gut feel. Always go back to the passage, because these small traps are often set in the options, which if you do not go back to the passage, students may fall for them. Okay. Now we have to find the elimination strategy. First is the 2-second rule. If an answer feels off instantly, it probably is. Trust your instincts, but always verify with the passage. Like I said, always verify with the passage. Extreme answers should be your first suspect. The first step should be to look for those words. Always, never, all, completely. By now, you must be able to remember a lot of those extreme words. So always look for them and just eliminate them. For example, most students enjoy reading fiction. All students love fiction. So again, all is an extreme word, remove it. Quickly eliminate the worst choice. Avoid overthinking on obvious wrong answers. So you should not be wasting your much time on these kind of extreme statements. Elimination strategy 2. Reverse engineer. Ask, does this answer match what's in the passage? If not, eliminate it. Like I said, if you come across a piece of information, even if it seems very commonsensical, even if it seems factually correct, it has to match the passage. So always think that, okay, is it mentioned in the passage? Try to find it. If it is there, only then can it be the answer. Test the answer by plugging it back into the passage. So for example, the author argues that climate change is a growing concern. Now, the wrong answer could be the author believes climate change is not a real threat. So, this small twisting. So, always compare before choosing the right option, always look for it in the passage. Sometimes just one word change can completely change the meaning. Okay. Elimination strategy 3, wordplay. So, CLAT loves tricky wording. Look for synonyms, minor wording shifts, or phrases that change the meaning. Watch for words like some versus all, likely versus definitely. Some words, small words, big difference. For example, some historians argue that empire fell due to economic reasons. Wrong answer could be historians agree that empire fell solely due to economic reasons. Now, the word solely completely changes the meaning. That in the passage, the author is saying that this could be one reason, because the author has not said that this is the only reason. But in the option, everything else remaining same, the word solely twists the meaning. That means that this is the only reason. So this cannot be the right option. This completely changes from what the passage is trying to say. Beware of the hidden assumptions. If the answer rewords the passage but makes it sound more certain or extreme, it is likely wrong. So if this answer is trying to look more extreme or more certain also, no, it has to be only as certain as the passage is claiming it to be. You cannot, if there has been a word added solely or for sure, certainly, then it is wrong, because it should be in alignment with the passage. Elimination strategy process strategy. Okay, how do you, okay, yeah, the process of elimination. So you can always cross out the obviously wrong answers first, like we did in the starting passage, work through the elimination rather than searching for correct answer immediately. So a lot of times when you do not know the answer, it's best to start with elimination. Eliminate extreme, opposite, or out of scope choices first, then one or two option will be left and it will be easier to spot the answer. For example, the author believes space exploration has both risks and reward. Now, space exploration is entirely dangerous. Remove it. Entirely dangerous. It's again an extreme word. The author supports space exploration at any cost. Again, an extreme statement. It cannot support at any cost. Space exploration is risky but has benefits. It's a balanced statement, so this has to be the answer. Don't leave similar answers for last. If two answers seem identical, check for small differences in wording. So if a lot of times there is only very small one word play between two statements. So always look for that, try to find that one word. Okay. When in doubt, remove the least wrong choice. If unsure, eliminate the most obvious incorrect answers first. Okay. You also try to find the hidden clue. The correct answer is always in the passage. It may not be obvious, but it is there. Look for subtle hints in the wording and phrasing. For example, pollution levels have increased in the urban area. Now, the wrong answer would be the passage states that pollution has increased in all regions. No, it has increased in urban areas. So, you have to be very specific about the meaning of the statements in the passage. Find words like some, most, tends to. They indicate a clue about the passage's main idea. Compare every word carefully. Okay. Now, wrong versus right answer choices. So, if the passage statement says most students enjoy reading fiction, the answer choice saying all students love fiction is an extreme one. It's wrong. Many students enjoy reading fiction. Again, many is almost a synonym of most, so that is the right option. So, if the statement says the author argues that climate change is a growing concern, the state now if the option says the author denies climate change is an issue, it's opposite. It's not what the author is saying in the passage. But if the option says the author emphasizes climate change concerns, then that's the right choice. If the passage says some scientists believe AI will revolutionize medicine, and if the option says all scientists agree AI is the future of medicine, then it's just some sort of distortion. That's not what the scientists are saying. Certain scientists see AI as transformative in medicine. Some scientists, certain scientists. Again, very synonym. It's a synonym word and very similar meaning. So that is the right choice. Now we have learned all these tricks and techniques. It's time to practice the passage. So the passage one. The discovery of Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 provided scholars with new insights into religious practices and beliefs of Jewish sects that lived during the Second Temple period. The scrolls contain copies of biblical text as well as unique sectarian writings, many of which reflect the doctrines of Essenes, a religious group that sought to separate themselves from mainstream Jewish society. While some historians initially believed the Essenes were the primary authors of the scrolls, recent research suggests that the texts may have been composed by multiple Jewish communities over several centuries rather than by a single sect. Which of the following answer choices is incorrect based on the passage? A. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain texts written by multiple Jewish communities. B. The Essenes were a Jewish religious sect that distanced themselves from mainstream society. C. Recent research has confirmed that Essenes were the sole authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And D. The scrolls include copies of biblical texts and other religious writings. Now you can go back to the passage, maybe pause at this point, reread, try to find the keywords from the options and find them in the passage and try to solve the question. Now, the incorrect statement is C. Recent research has confirmed that Essenes were the sole authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Now, I've explained all the options, why C is incorrect and hence the correct option in this question and why the other options are correct. So, you can have a look at them I'll just talk about the option C, that is our answer. The passage explicitly states that recent research suggests that text may have been composed by multiple Jewish communities over several centuries rather than by a single sect. This means that recent study does not confirm the Essenes as the sole author. So this is very fairly simple. It has been mentioned in very clear words in the passage. So option C is the incorrect statement and hence our option for the question. Answer for the question. Now passage 2. A fun one. The Bollywood film Dangal is based on the true story of Mahavir Singh Fogart, a former wrestler who defied social norms to train his daughters Geeta and Babita in the traditionally male dominated sport of wrestling. Despite facing resistance from their community and enduring rigorous physical training, the sisters rise to become the champion wrestlers, proving that gender is not a limitation in sports. The film highlights themes of perseverance, breaking stereotypes, and the importance of a mentor in achieving success. Ultimately, Dangal challenges the notion that only men can succeed in wrestling and showcases the power of determination and hard work. Now, which of the following answer choices is incorrect based on the passage? Mahavir Singh Fogart's daughter becomes successful wrestlers despite societal resistance. Okay. The movie Dangal suggests that only men can excel in wrestling. Sirf men can do the wrestling. C. The film portrays Mahavir as a mentor who plays a crucial role in his daughter's success. D. The story of Dangal emphasizes perseverance and breaking stereotypes. So I think this is a fairly simple question. The correct answer is B. The movie Dangal suggests that only men can excel in wrestling. Now, this is incorrect choice. Incorrect compared to the message given in the passage, and hence the correct answer. Because the question is asking you to choose the incorrect. Which of the following is not correct as per the information in the passage? Okay. So option B. So here's the solution. So I have compiled a list of common words that you can find in wrong answer choices. Words like often, not always, that which means not always. The word often means not always. It is found in wrong answer choices. The extreme words like always, never, completely, totally, must, only. Again, extreme language. These are often found in wrong answer choices. All, none, no one, entirely, impossible. Again, absolute words. So, more commonly seen in wrong answer choices. Many experts, reports suggest, some claim. So, these are the keywords that are often used in the out of scope drafts. So, sometimes the examiner will say many experts suggest and add some irrelevant information that is not mentioned in the passage. So, be mindful of these words. Logical deduction, like we tried to do in the passage today. Logical deduction. Trust facts over gut feelings. Ensure alignment with passage's tone. Check for shifts in arguments. Remove the worst answers first. Compare the remaining one. Gradual elimination improves the accuracy. Always go back to the passage before answering, and avoid making assumptions. The passage is your best friend. You have to answer only and only on the basis of information given in the passage. You do not have to add your own facts or your own common sense. Always on the basis of information given in the question. Now, the passage exercise. The role of memory in learning. Researchers studying cognitive psychology have long debated the role of memory in learning. Some argue that memory acts merely as a storage mechanism, holding facts for later use, while others believe memory is integral to comprehension itself. A recent study suggests that students who actively recall information while studying perform significantly better on tests than those passively reviewing material. This has led to some experts to advocate for retrieval based learning, where students frequently test themselves on material rather than just rereading it. However, critics argue that focusing too much on memorization may come at the expense of deep understanding. Now, the question. Which of the following can be most reasonably inferred from the passage, or which of the following can be the inference from the passage? A. Inference, like we've discussed before, means the logical conclusions but not explicitly stated. Memorization is the most effective way to achieve deep understanding. B. Passive learning techniques are completely ineffective for students. C. Retrieval based learning can improve test performance. D. The best way to study is to avoid any memorization. Now go back to passage, pause and try to reread it. Come back to question and try to solve it. So the correct answer is retrieval based learning can improve performance. The passage states that students who the passage states sorry sorry. The passage states that students who ultimately recall information while studying perform significantly better on the tests. So the option C that says retrieval based learning can improve test performance. This directly supports the information given in the passage, and hence the C is your correct option. And you can identify the traps and you can eliminate them. Like option A is too extreme, option B is out of scope, option D is a distorted one. Another passage, the influence of social media on political awareness. The rise of social media has dramatically changed how people consume political news. Unlike traditional newspapers or television broadcasts, social media platforms allow users to engage in political discussions in real time. While some argue that this fosters greater political awareness, others warn that it may encourage misinformation. Studies have shown that people are more likely to believe information that aligns with their existing beliefs, leading to a phenomenon known as echo chamber effect. Critics argue that social media, rather than broadening perspectives, may actually reinforce pre existing biases. Now, which of the following statements best expresses the main idea of the passage? So, option A, social media is a completely unreliable source of political information. Completely unreliable, तो कैसे हो सकता है? It's an extreme choice. The echo chamber effect is primary reason for people's distrust in news. Okay. Social media can both increase political awareness and reinforce biases. Traditional media is a superior source of political information. So the correct option is option C. Social media can both increase political awareness and reinforce biases. The passage acknowledges both perspectives, that it can foster awareness, but it also creates echo chambers that reinforce biases. So, rest of the option, why they are eliminated? Option A is too extreme, option B is out of scope, option D is unsupported assumption. The passage does not mean it's an irrelevant information that is not given in the passage. So, with this, we get to the end of our today's lecture. Be sure to read carefully and efficiently. Trust the passage, not your assumption. And as I always say, practice, practice, practice. That's the only key. That's the only way to solve to be able to solve the questions in the examination. Okay, thank you.